Out about her. Sherry Cothran Woolsey fronted the rock band the Evinrudes, whose song "Drive Me Home" earned regional hit status and landed the band a major record deal on Mercury Records. Following the band's London release on Flying Sparks record in 2002, Sherry released a solo album titled "Who Let the World In." She also appeared in and wrote songs for an independent movie called Novum in the summer of 2003. Last year, one of her songs from her solo album was featured on an episode of the ABC hit TV show Men in Trees. Sherry was born and raised here in West Tennessee, where she learned how to sing gospel music with an all-girl quartet, accompanied by her brother on the piano. Is her brother here? No? No. She's now pursuing her MDiv degree here at Vanderbilt Divinity School. She's also in the ordination process in the United Methodist Church. Last summer, just before last summer, Sherry came to me and had a kind of a brainstorm of an idea that we talked about writing songs about women in the Hebrew Bible and then preaching sermons that grew out of those songs. And in some ways, I guess this is not a final exam, but it's
a final exam for the class.
Yeah, this is sort of the last piece of that. All summer she's been preaching these sermons, which I'll let her talk about what that means and looks like and so on. But it's really been an exciting project in a lot of different ways. I've asked Sherry to just kind of present kind of where she comes from with all of this, how she got where she is, what this project was about, where she kind of sees it going, and also to play for us some of the music that she's created as a part of that. So let's give Sherry a warm welcome.
Thank you. Does everybody have one of these before we begin? This is your bulletin, as we say in church. Follow along.
I don't have one.
This project was a crazy idea, and I ended up having to fill in for the pastor at West Nashville United Methodist, where I am an associate pastor. It was my first pastoring gig ever, and he took a 3-month sabbatical and said, "You're in charge." So I had planned to figure out some way to work songwriting into that Sunday morning space, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. And halfway through the summer, I was just beating myself up saying, "This is crazy, this is insane." And in fact, the first 2 sermons that I didn't sing at all because I was just terrified of what that might mean. And I kind of come to preaching from a Southern Baptist kind of patriarchal background, so it was sort of a huge threshold for me to cross to even be in the pulpit. But I'd taken John's homiletics class my first or second year here, and as I was starting to write sermons for the first time, I realized, this is a lot like songwriting. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end portion. The middle resolves the beginning and the end. Oh yeah, I get that. So when I began writing sermons in John's class, I started treating them as if they were songs, and it made it a lot more fun for me and helped me to really get into the narrative, and in many ways sort of made this project seem feasible. And I think this project actually started about 5 or 6 years ago when my husband, who's also a United Methodist minister, and I were actually dating. And we used to have these pretty heated discussions about text and the characters and the world, the narrative world of text. And it really, really inspired me to take some of these characters and try and reinterpret the narratives for our times. And so that's kind of what I've done. And John kind of asked me to speak a little bit about how I've done that, but I'm going to play quite a few of them as well, because I think just the listening experience probably says a lot more than I can say in words. So first, I don't know who I'm going to choose first. Just talk a little bit about the reasons I chose women of the Hebrew Bible as my subject matter. For me, growing up in a Southern Baptist, rural, small-town background, these were really the most hidden characters, and their stories had been told to me, and they had been represented to me not quite as they really are. And as I grew older, I began to discover these women, and they began to discover me. And I wanted to recreate a narrative world that I could inhabit as a woman. And I really sort of asked them to speak to me. And the words that I heard are not always comfortable to say in Sunday morning pulpit space, but I did say them anyway. One of my characters that's a bit racy is Rahab. And anyone want to venture to do a synopsis of the story of Rahab? Anyone? Group participation, group discussion. Rahab? No one? No one's going to take the bait. Okay. Well, Rahab is a character in Joshua chapter 2, and who knows the story of Rahab, by the way? Yeah, Dr. Sasson, why don't you tell us the story of Rahab?
Well, basically, she is supposed to have been a prostitute in the city of Jericho. And when the Hebrew spies were first sent in, she gave them shelter unexpectedly. And then, as they were leaving, she promised them that they would be protected. When they left, they said they would protect her too. And when the Hebrews came in with all their symbols and sounds and everything, everyone mocked the possibility that they will destroy Jericho, but it was destroyed. But her family not only survived, but they were honored. And there are traditions, not in the biblical text, that in fact she ended up marrying Joshua. And there are traditions in the Testament, of course, that she's one of the great ancestors.
It's beautiful, thank you. One of the problems with my upbringing with her was that she had been stamped a prostitute. And even though she was this hero figure, she could never really quite get away from that identity of being a prostitute. She was always going to be a prostitute. So when I went back to the text, I just asked, well, what if she was a hero first, and then a prostitute? What if her prostitution was a function of her actually being heroic? And I think I was reading some feminist literature, I can't remember who at the time, but it was asking the question, well, what if her prostitution was a function of her survival? And she was actually seeing the world, through that lens. And so I just took that and put it into the song. We were made to praise our Creator. Even in our death of praise, we go against ourselves in this endeavor. And against each other, it's our way. And all you can do is sing over it all. Sing to tame the ghosts of the fall. Sing over it all. Don't come against me, I'm defenseless. I'm on the outside looking in. Oh, pleading my case, asking for grace. Pleading my case, asking for God to have mercy over me. Yeah, you must have heard my song. Heard that I'm the one who makes love from war. Thank you. So, that was a little hard to put in the pulpit on Sunday morning. Maybe not for some people, but it was hard for me. But I think people generally responded pretty well to it. What do you think, Angela? I have some people from my congregation here, actually staff of my congregation. So speak up any moment as to how it actually went. But I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the processes that I use to put the songs together. In John's class, we learned how to do exegesis, and at least we scratched the surface. And one of the first things after reading the text that I would do is I just meditate on the text itself and begin to ask questions of the characters. Sometimes this doesn't yield any sort of response. Sometimes it's just blank, black void of space. Then I would go and check my commentaries just to make sure I'm getting the story right, because, you know, I don't want to get my text wrong. My husband would probably kill me if I did that. But after that, things start to get interesting after that. I would then, my favorite part of the process was going and finding writers who had actually written on these characters, like Athala Brenner, Claudia V. Camp, Phyllis Tribble, we talk about a lot, and just kind of getting their take on who these women might have been. And then I would take some of their comments and some of the commentary and some of the world of the text and begin to weave together a framework, or columns, if you will, to begin to allow the sort of narrative world to build. The most fun part that I have after that is I would go and consult some of my favorite poets, and I just think that you need some sort of artistic medium, whatever it is, if it's poetry or photography or, I don't know, watching B-rate Italian movies. I don't know. Whatever it is, I think you need some sort of process to get you out of your head and into your heart, where you can really begin to sort of feel your way through the narrative. And one of the interesting, I think, things that happened with, I was working with, what song is that? Witch of Endor, which is a nice little story about Saul in, where is that? Samuel chapter 28. Saul had basically made necromancy illegal, but at this he's sort of at the end of his rope, and he goes and decides he needs to consult a medium. And the Witch of Endor is a medium who scholars think may have been sort of pushed to the boundaries of the actual geographical area, because what she was doing was against the law. But at any rate, Saul needs to know the truth, and he can't find it anywhere else, so he goes and consults the Witch of Endor. And there was a poem by Elizabeth Bishop that reminded me so much of this, called The Riverman, in which, any of you Elizabeth Bishop fans? In this poem, the man consults a river spirit. Her name is Luandina, I think. And the river spirit holds the truth. And she carries him down deep underneath the water, and he finds there that he wishes he had a virgin mirror, so that he can hold the virgin mirror up to the spirits to capture their essence. And so this reminded me so much of Saul, who was really, he was just so burnt and broken by the system and by trying to make things work, that he really had lost the essence of himself. And he really had lost his sense of the truth. And Dr. Sassen's looking at me like, you didn't read that right, but but that's the way that I read it. And another aspect of that was King David had been part of Saul's undoing. And if anybody remembers the story, King David used to charm Saul with his guitar. And at one point, they're both trying to kill each other in the text. And so I was reading another poem by Lorca, another South American poet. I love my South American poets. And Lorca has this line in one of his poems where I think it's from a brother and sister, a brother who's beating up on his sister or something, and it's this terrible undoing of family. And at the end of the song, he says something like, "And in the distance, the strings of King David's harp were broken." And so I kind of put those two images together, and that became my disclosure for this song, was that sense of complete brokenness that is so truthful. And it's not until Saul is just completely broken that he actually seeks the truth and finds the truth with the witch. And that the beautiful part of that story is that the compassion and the truthfulness happens between the witch and Saul, even though Samuel's presence is there and God's presence is there. You know, it's like God is telling Saul, look, I'm not with you anymore. I'm with David. And it's just this total sense of loss. And yet he and the Witch of Endor have this really genuine exchange. And so I like to play that one for you. Also, another thing I did with this that was fun was I was thinking about Robert Plant's song, Darkness, Darkness. Are you familiar with that song? Darkness, darkness, be my blanket. Very dark song, very haunted. And I was thinking that I wanted to conjure up that sense of hauntedness and darkness. And so... He was broken. So I've kind of told you about the process that I used. One other thing that I did that I found to be helpful is I have a lot of old hymns in my repertoire, and one of my favorites is one called "There is a Fountain Filled with Blood." It's really there is a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunge beneath that flood, lose all their guilty stain, lose all their guilty stains, lose all their guilty stains. Oh, and sinners plunge beneath that flood, lose all their guilty stains. So I really love that hymn, and I've always wanted to use it somehow. And the imagery of guilty stains was just so strong, and it reminded me so much of, I used to love Dr. Burns' class in this song, by the way. He really burned the teachings of Augustine into our heads. And it made me really connect this idea of guilt with this hymn. And I was reading at the time the story of Jephthah's daughter. And in the story, this is in Judges chapter 11, Judges is just this crazy book of just social dysfunction and, just a complete undoing of a society. And Jephthah was kicked out of his home as a kid, the text says in the beginning of the chapter, and he, I think because they thought his mom was a prostitute or something, and so he goes and joins a gang, and he ends up being raised by this gang, even though he is still a part of the, I think, Gileadite tribe. Is that correct? And so when the Ammonites begin to threaten this tribe pretty heavily, the elders get together and they say, oh, we need a thug. We need somebody who can really, really, pound these guys. And so they're like, Jephthah, yeah. I remember Jephthah. So they actually go and track him down and bring him back. And they tell him that if he defeats the Ammonites, that he'll be, like, their leader. And so there's this scene there where it's really heartbreaking because they say to him twice, if you defeat them, you'll be our leader. And he asks them, if I defeat them, I'll be your leader. And they say it again, and then he asks them again because it's almost as if he can't believe it. And so, Jephthah really doesn't have a clue that this whole theme throughout the book of Judges is that when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon you in battle, that most likely you're going to win. And so when Jephthah gets ready to go into battle, the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him. But you don't really know, does he not know it? He's not familiar with this cultural thing that's going on. You don't really know what happens, but he doesn't really give any indication that he knows what's going on. And so he actually makes God, or asks God, because you can't make God, but he begs of God to, or he makes a promise with God that if God will help him win the battle, that he'll sacrifice the first being that comes to greet him upon his arrival home. Well, of course, he wins the battle, and he gets home, and his daughter comes out to greet him as the first being. And so he immediately tears his clothes, and, there's this very tragic exchange between the two of them. And so it ends up unfolding that he has to, she has to sacrifice her life because of this promise that's been made. And some people think maybe she didn't. She just went and kind of became the equivalent of a nun or something. But I don't know. I kind of take it to mean that she actually did. She goes away for a couple months and collects herself, but she does come back and they do the deed. And so this idea of guilty stains was playing in my head, and I just began to sort of overlay that on Jephthah, because I really felt like he just didn't get it, you know. He didn't get this whole fall idea, you know, that we're fallen and that we're guilty, and you know, God removes the stain of guilt. And good old Augustinian theology there. And so I just kind of thought, well, you know, what would I say if I were her, or what would she want to say? You know, at this point, she's a little bitter, but she's also very what's the word? She's very mature and almost very spiritually mature in her take on the situation. And so, because she knows Augustine, so anyway, it works out in my head somehow. Okay, so this is called The Judge's Daughter. It's don't promise me the world if you're gonna love me. Don't make me any promises. God promised Abraham all the stars in the sky on the condition he will take his own baby's life. Felt guilty for what he was willing to do. What kind of love requires the tip of a knife at the throat of the beloved, just for proof? Just for proof, at the throat of the beloved, just for proof. Guilty stains, oh love is always at the mercy. Guilty stains, oh someone, yeah, someone is gonna pay. And there's a weakness in your heart. It's like a fault line. It's been with you from the start. Yeah, but it don't give you the right to steal every last ray of light. Nobody's gonna deny a great man his dignity. Yeah, you've earned it. sometimes we have no idea what the text is telling us, and I was kind of at the end of my project, and I needed another song, and I was talking to Dr. Sasson about it, and I had done Deborah, which I'll play Deborah for you in a minute, but he said, why don't you do Huldah? I was like, oh, Huldah, I don't know anything about Huldah. And so he told me a little bit about her, and I looked her up, and there was really not a lot of information on her. There are a couple of female prophets in the text, Deborah being one of them, and Huldah being another, and basically she is the wife of the keeper of the wardrobe for King Josiah, and so her husband has this pretty high up place in the hierarchy and of the king, and King Josiah, and I haven't heavily researched this one because I just finished this song today, so I'm going to take a risk playing it for you. And maybe my husband can help me out with this. But King Josiah could have consulted Jeremiah, am I correct, by this time?
There's a couple of Bible scholars around here. Why don't you ask?
Okay. You're my conversation partner. Yeah, Jeremiah was on sabbatical, I guess,
Right.
and his female preacher was filling in for him. So, yeah, she was telling the story. So basically, there were a bunch of workers working on the temple to repair the temple, and they found a book inside the temple walls. Hilkiah was sort of overseeing this project, and Josiah gets one of his assistants to go get some money to pay the workers, and when they find Hilkiah is all upset. He's like, I found this book, I don't know what it means, it looks important. So he gives it to the messenger, takes it back to Josiah, and Josiah is just like, oh, this is a big deal, this book is a really big deal, we have to find out what it means. So he goes to Huldah, and Huldah is a female prophet, and we don't know anything really about her that much. We just know that she's chosen to interpret the book. And come to find out, it's an oracle from God that he's going to send judgment on the people of the land who have not obeyed him. And we find out later that there are all these sorts of idols, sex idols, and naked pictures of women everywhere, and all kinds of stuff. And but Josiah had lived a very good life, an upright life. He was an upright man. And so instead of telling him that he was going to suffer too, she says, everybody's going to, undergo this pretty severe, massive judgment, but you are going to be okay. That's basically what she said. You, O king, will not suffer. And we wonder, if Jeremiah would have delivered that same good news to the king, He might have said, like, everybody's going down, Jeremiah was pretty depressing. So anyway, I really wanted to put Huldah in here, and I wrote out the lyrics they're not on the sheet, I'm sorry, but I do need a little help with this because it's still in process, and I need you all to sing with me on this. And there's a part on here, it's all you have to say is in the morning, and I'll show you where to sing it. It goes right here. It's part of the chorus, so here's where you'll sing. In the morning, in the morning. So sing that again. In the morning. There we go, one more time. In the morning. John will lead you in this, right? Okay, so basically this is just a really kind of a fun song about Huldah. It's not that deep. You need a woman to tell you the truth and still make you feel good about yourself. That's right. You weren't looking for it, but I found you anyway. Oh, bad news. I got some bad news to tell. Come here, baby. Let's take a little inventory about the way it's coming up. You tell the story in the morning. Okay, just keep singing that, alright? In the morning, you're gonna walk in the light. Unbelievers will fall right. In the morning, judgment day will around. You'll go to your peace before daylight. Very good. So the truth was hiding all this time in the temple, in the walls, in your bones. You weren't looking for it, no, but I found you anyway. It's like a cancer looking for a home. Come here, baby. Let's take a little inventory. It's a hard world, but you can still see the glory in the morning. Yeah. In the morning. In the morning, you're gonna walk in the light. Unbelievers will fall left and right. You're gonna walk to your peace. Where the truth spreads out the sea. In the morning. We got one more big finale here after this. In the morning. Okay, let's rock it out. Here we go. In the morning. You're gonna walk in the light. Judgment day will arrive. You're gonna walk in the Very good. Thank you. That was awesome. I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I wanted to finish it, though, for tonight. So, let me do Deborah. She was really fun. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? Anybody want to talk about any of this stuff? No? Just shut up and play? I'm going to dedicate this one to Annie because it's her birthday. And it's my favorite woman, Deborah the prophetess. It's not mine anymore. I gave it to him. Make it cry away. And the story of Deborah is a beautiful one too. She prophesies about another woman, Jael, that I'll tell you about later. But she prophesies victory over an army that has 10,000 iron chariots and iron weapons, and people in the Israelite tribes come from all over because they hear the sort of battle cry, and some people don't come because they don't think they can win because they don't have weapons, but a lot of people do come without weapons, and for me it meant that they just came trusting that God would be victorious for them in battle, and God was victorious, and so it's the whole idea of your life is poetry. I think so much of the time of prophecy as poetry, in that it really reveals this sort of other realm that we don't have access to except through this sort of mystical, otherworldly language. It's sort of truth-telling. And I think songwriting does the same thing if it's done in that spirit. But that whole idea of our lives being poetry kind of came out of that feeling that she was a true poet in that sense. So anyway, that's Deborah. Anybody want to add anything about Deborah? Have any other Deborah lovers in here? This is one of my favorite ones. I'll tell you a little bit about this. I also think that this whole process, it's really necessary to have good conversation partners. And I know all of us here in the room probably have great conversation partners here at the Divinity School and elsewhere. Because I think, is it Rikurian to say that you're building worlds with your words? Or is that Tillich? It's Rikur, okay. And my conversation partner is in the back, and we really began this conversation, like I said, when we were dating, and we disagree, but there's the sense that we always have the text between us. And what did we say today as I was writing my paper? As long as you have the text between us, it acts as a not a.
You said regulator.
Yeah, that's not a good word. It acts as a.
It acts as a space.
A space, yeah.
It encases
that's right.
us both.
Encases us both.
I still think she's wrong.
Well, about this particular song that I'm going to play, not about everything. But this is one where John and I met in the middle of the summer, and I have filmed a couple of the song sermons, and they were really awkward. I thought they were really awkward. But I did it, and I was proud of myself for doing it. So, but he said to me, you just really need to trust the song. You've done your exegetical work. You've done the work that you need to do. The song is the sermon, and you just need to trust that and get up there and talk about it. And so I had, Patrick, my husband, gave me the topic of the strange woman of Proverbs 1-9, and she's sort of the antithesis of the wise woman. And she's, I'm trying to think of a modern day comparison, like Paris Hilton or something, I don't know. Or worse, I don't know. She's really bad. You don't want to follow her. You don't want to be like her. She's terrible. She will lead you astray. She's what? Stolen water. She's a loose woman. And I've been called that a few times in my life, so I was like, I can really resonate with that. Being this sort of figure that people didn't want their sons to be around, or people in the church community or religious community didn't really want you in because, you're not one of them. And I did some reading, I think it was Claudia V. Camp on this, was talking about, and Ellen Frankel was talking about, she may have been a...
Carol Fontaine talked about that one.
Yeah. is that she may have been this sort of construction that was very much like a Lilith character, this sort of demonized woman who might come in, steal young men's seed at night, and that they had maybe possibly created this figure as a sort of behavioral control, a method of behavioral control for young men. And so that really set me thinking, and then the wise woman is just, it's impossible for anyone to live up to the wise woman. She stays up all night making fine linens for her husband and like preparing her table, and I'm like, nobody is like that, Yeah, Martha Stewart. So yeah.
Before the fall.
Before the fall. So, yeah, and even Martha Stewart couldn't live up to Martha Stewart, that's what happened.
Even she can't.
Even she can't. And so we set these impossible standards for ourselves, and so I thought, well, what if we make this strange woman figure like an anti-hero, and she begins to critique, this whole ideological world of trying to be wise. And then Patrick came along and said, well, Ecclesiastes has a great critique on wisdom, and then I started looking at Ecclesiastes, and I was like, wow, he's really saying that it's a chasing after the wind, this whole construction of wisdom, and so I just went all over the place with this song. And he didn't like it because I was working with what I felt was a misinterpretation of the text, the way that we had misinterpreted it in our religious communities and applied it to women, in our religious communities, expecting women to sort of be these Martha Stewart figures, in order to fit in, and in order to advance in the system, so to speak. And so I took that to the pulpit on Sunday morning, and he was really against it because it was like a secondary textual move rather than like a primary move. But people really liked it, and they liked it because they could relate to it. They understand what it means to not want to live up to all these impossible standards that we set for ourselves, and so and I also threw in some stuff about, I always think that especially in our society we have this sort of rage for order mentality. If everything is not orderly and perfect, then we're not at a certain level of our lives by age 35, then our worlds are crushed, and if we're not like, this perfect, skinny, beautiful, ideal woman, then, we don't get accepted in certain realms. And I just kind of thought that I would let the strange woman kind of like walk through that whole world and see what she came up with. And so that's what I did with This Is the Strange Woman.
Can't
Okay. They really like that song. They did. Were you there that day? Yeah. I don't know why. They really liked it. That was their favorite one. He still disagrees. So funny. What else? What time is it? Let's try.
It's currently 8:05.
8:05? Do you want me to, what do you want me to do? You want me to play some more? Or?
Maybe one or two more.
One or
We
two?
could talk,
Okay.
even if we were going to go till 8:30.
Okay. Great. I'll play a couple of these secondary ones. Let's see.
You should talk for a minute.
Okay. I think I'm going to play this one because Dr. Sasson is here and we're currently studying Song of Songs. And we had a great talk about it yesterday, verses 1 through 7. It's a hard book to get through, but we'll get through it. The language, yeah. Will you sing the first part of it for us? You have to pay for that, huh? Okay. I did write this. I wrote this a while back, but I wanted to bring it in. This is just, it's called 10,000 Charms. And again, there was a hymn that I really liked. I have found a friend in Jesus. He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. He will never, never leave me, nor yet forsake me here, while I live by faith and do his blessed will. Have you heard that? Though all the world forsake me and Satan tempt me so, through Jesus I shall safely reach the goal. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. So I kind of adapted that for the chorus, and the lyrics are just absolutely, stunningly beautiful, and so really it's just kind of a pretty, ballad of love. I will rise and go about the streets, seeking the one my soul loves. Have you seen him dark as a raven, with eyes soft as doves? Oh, rise, my love, away. Take me in your arms, for in that sweet embrace, That language was straight from the interpreted Hebrew, not the original Hebrew.
Why don't you do it next?
As my presentation. I just happen to have a presentation next week. I could do that.
Do it.
Okay, we will. It's a deal.
And then we won't have a class.
Thank you. So I'll do one more, and then you all. This has just been a really, really fun process for me, and John has been amazing throughout this, and really, I think what the Divinity School does so well is it just really. I never thought I would ever rediscover music again. I had kind of given up my past career, and I was going to be like a sort of a nun-like character, I guess, in the Protestant world. And I don't know, I just met people here, and people discovered that I did this, and they just kind of, it became like a community effort to get me to do it again. And so I'm so happy that I have, and really, just all of my classes here have just been so helpful at helping me to just excavate not only, you know, my inner world, but how text really, how I, you know, interact with text, and that narrative world of text that has always been so incredibly special and dear to me, but at the same time, you know, inhibiting, because of, you know, the culture that I was raised in. And I think in so many ways these songs have allowed me to really break out of that and like I said, reconstruct a world that I can live in, you know, that has furniture that I like. So, and that's definitely, you know, possible. It's been a transformational process for me. And I really appreciate you all being here tonight. And I hope it's been enlightening for you. It's been very enlightening for me. I'm going to play my last song. I'm sorry, this is really like a thrasher song. This is Jael, who is in Deborah's prophecy. She actually takes a tent stake and puts it through a guy's head. And she's a hero for it. It's very therapeutic, this song. It really is. There's all kinds of great feminist literature. I read a lot of Mike Bao for this particular song, who just does incredible work on the Book of Judges. She has a book called Death and Dissymmetry, which is amazing. I think all of these characters are autobiographical for me. You know, in one way or another, I find myself in them, and that's what I love about the world of text.
Kill someone?
I don't have to. Jael's done it for me. She kind of coaxes this guy into her tent. He's the leader of the Cicerone army who, you know, they were getting defeated pretty bad, even though they had all these chariots of iron, 10,000 chariots of iron, and you know, it's just a world of disparity because the Israelites were kind of, I don't want to say the bottom of the food chain, but they certainly didn't have the funds to, you know, create these kinds of expensive weapons. And so they really had to rely on God and rely on their wits and their women. Jael was not even, she was I can't remember. A bear? Okay. She wasn't even an Israelite, and she ends up acting on behalf of God's people and is celebrated for it. But this is her story. It's just a straight story taken from the text. And then I added another little hymn, Snow White Dove. I love Snow White Dove. On the wings of Snow White Dove, he sends his pure, sweet love. Now I'm breaking the deli part, and I want to do that. On the wings of Snow White Dove, he comes to me. So I put a little bit of that in there, but it's really twisted. So,
I want to take just maybe a few minutes in just a second to have if there are any questions that you would have for Sherry about the process. But just a quick word. We're talking. Sherry is talking about and planning, I think, to record a CD, right?
Yes.
Of the songs with some interesting liner notes and whatever to go along with it. So it'll be hoping to make that work. Maybe even the Luz Foundation might be one of fun part of the CD. Poor Robin. That's right. You never know. Write them again. Another note, Robin. Anyway, thanks a lot, Sherry. Let's give Sherry another round of applause. I should have a sign-up sheet. We can all suggest what her grade for this project is. Everyone except, of course, Patrick, who would put a minus, I think, perhaps.
Yeah. Only on the one song.
Oh, I know. Are there any questions, thoughts, questions? Yeah, Ron.
First of all, I love your poetry and your music. But in studying for a church retreat that's coming up, there was this process that you described was almost a personal discernment process of reading the text, moving into the text, opening your heart, and then seeing what pours out in the conversation with God sort of approach. And what I'm wondering is as you face your role as an associate pastor and working with a congregation, can you see some way to begin to have that same process unfold at a congregational level?
Yeah, it's funny that you should bring that up. That was a part of my paper that I wrote for the project, was that it was really a struggle to do this on Sunday morning and to feel as if, that responsibility to me is to bring the good news to the congregation on Sunday morning as a communal act. I think of preaching as a very communal act, and this felt very isolated in some ways, like it was self-serving, and so it was hard to do that. But I also kind of, I guess, justified that with the fact that it was a project for homiletics, and I was bound and determined to do it. But I think the next step of, where I would go with this in terms of on a congregational level, and John and I talked about this just a little bit, would be to figure out how to make this a process that people can engage in and be a part of, and participate in, not just with songwriting, but with art and with poetry, or any kind of artistic medium that would allow people to, because we engage with text, because I think the main aspect of it really is, how do you engage with text in a way that is beyond technical, in a way that really gets you to feel it and sense it and really become a member of that world, or enter into a situation where the world of the text is actually reading you, and when you get to that place, it's really exciting and really transformational.
And you've overcome the rage of order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then it becomes a personal journey for everyone, not just me. And so I think that's where I want to go with my music. It's not, I don't have any interest anymore in playing clubs or, just me standing up there being, the person of focus. I did that for so long. I just, this going into ministry for me was, leaving that behind and just saying, I've done that, did that, that was fun, but, my life belongs to the church now. And this feels like it was sort of maybe an entryway into moving, hopefully moving into that. Yes.
I have a question. Would you feel comfortable creating songs about the men?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you done that?
Well, I have actually. I wrote a song about Jeremiah called "Stand at the Crossroads." That was really fun. I've written a few about men. I really love the male characters. I guess I chose the women just because I thought it would be a good theme, you know, and I had been reading a lot of B.K. Bao, and she really inspired me. And Lethal Love, and I was just drawn to the tragedy of these women, you know. But yeah, any character in text, you know, that situations, characters, I love to do it all. I think it's an endless world, you know, it really is.
One of the things that we've been trying to do together that I've been sort of listening for is just how it is that art, and in this case music, can really deepen the sort of practice of sermon preparation and brainstorming, but also working with congregations around text. You know, this is just, I think it's a hugely fruitful kind of area, but it's not something that we know a whole lot about, or that a lot has been written about even.
Yeah, John kept saying, but how do you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah, I just, I want to get the next question, or what's going on? What's happening when you're doing this? What started to happen? But several things that we began to notice. One thing that was really interesting to me that I was not expecting, that I sort of talked about, was how, because I've been wondering for years how to get sort of real depth of theological reflection going about it around a text. What do you can't just talking theology and doctrine and categories has just not been working well, you know, for me. But trying to say, well, here's the way that you think, and how can you think this text through this lens of a particular theological model and so on. It doesn't work. But it seemed like what was happening with these songs in each case was that you were, that search for the hook, the sort of piece, that sort of depth piece within each text. We don't have the sermons here, but it seemed to release so many of the deeper sort of theological elements in your work.
That's right, because I had to search for. Do you want me to stand up?
No, I want you to speak about, since I'm her main conversation partner, so I've heard this like in endless loops, but invitational space, because for you it's very important how you invite people in, and you feel that's something that's kind of you're gifted at. People like to come and kind of come in, and you like to welcome them into the presence, but at that moment in time, into the presence of what? And I think that's where you and the text, you know, that space for the text really pops out for you.
Yeah.
Say more about that.
Okay.
I heard you talk about that.
I will. And John's question about the search for the hook, as you said, it does, because I think it makes you search the things that you're familiar with and the things that you love. You know, for me, I love poetry, so I began to look to poets to find correlations with what I thought was going on in the text and maybe what was going on in a particular poem. And then it would, all of a sudden, it would just hit me, you know, oh, this is the truth. You know, this is the path that I need to pursue. And I've written songs since I was 16, so it was a very familiar method for me, you know, to the arena of songwriting. It's just something I used. I don't think it's what you have to use. I think you can use anything that you're, you know, good at doing or want to explore doing, pottery or photography or movie making or, you know, anything.
Movement, dance.
Yeah, dance. Anything that's going to make you really center and find that that core of what the text is trying to say. And I think I just use songwriting because it was like an extension of my right arm, you know. But I would encourage people to use all kinds of methods, you know, to get at that. And then gracious space, I don't know what to say. I think the text is very gracious space. I think there's something transformational about it when you sit down and you ask the story to become a part of your life. There is a gracious transformation that occurs, I think, within that. Every time I sat down with one of these characters or with one of these stories, I came out thinking differently on the other end. For instance, with The Strange Woman, I came out thinking differently about people. You know, in some ways, differently about how people express themselves in the religious community. You know, all of a sudden I was just open. You know, I was just like, my eyes were open and I saw people differently, and I think that's the transformational, sort of gracious space of the text and what that space does for you.
Well, we're at the end of our time. If you've got other questions, maybe just talk with Sherry when you get a chance.